So I've never posted on this sub, though I have other stories I've buried deep until recently. But this is happening in the present. I've had people stalk and follow me before, and because of that and my true crime addiction, I've become supremely paranoid and a solid curtain twitcher. I'm a 31-year-old female and I resided in an upstairs room that was my first room to myself as a child. I had to leave a bad situation and therefore ended up back at my childhood home. For reference, when our house was built, we were told that the field to our left, with horses and a barn at the time, would one day soon be a development. It was year 2000 when we were told that, and it wasn't until 2022 that the road started being formed and foundations laid. I had already had someone follow me home before when I was young, but I was in a different bedroom next door. My parents put in a free library that's right below my window, as well as nighttime security lights that are very bright and turn on if you're within 20 feet of the side of my house that my room is on. I'll admit, having an open field next to me for so long made me accustomed to not closing the curtains when I change, because there was really never anyone to watch. Now there is. For the past 2 weeks, the burglar lights next to the free library have been going off late at night. Because my one side of the curtain is open, I can use my vape. That's the only reason I noticed at all. I didn't think too much at first. We lock all the doors and windows every night, and I'm on the second floor. I also always looked out to see if it was a car or someone walking their dog or a deer, only to see nothing there. To add to this, they put in a shit ton of streetlights around this area, so visibility is great. But it just kept happening. So last night I did my usual, and I saw the lights come on out of my peripheral vision. I acted natural, giving a full view of the window as I was going to bed. It was about 3 a.m. by the way. I then turned off the TV, closed the window and curtains, and turned the lights out. Then I ducked down, peering through the curtains to the sidewalk below. I honestly thought I was going to pass out, when after a few minutes, maybe 5, someone came out from the side of my house. It was a silhouette dressed in black. They kept their back to me until the light turned off, but I swear I could still see them standing there, looking up like they could see me. I called the police, but while I was on the phone with the operator, I then saw them run off. There wasn't much they could do except say they'd have a car drive around and look. My parents are asleep at this point, but I know I have to tell them tomorrow. This scares the crap out of me. If it hadn't been happening for weeks and was a solo incident, I would have been probably fine about it. But the fact that the light has been going off without me seeing activity and what happened tonight, well, it makes me think that this person has been watching me and watching my house. To the person outside my window, I really hope I don't see you again. Okay, so I have a small update. I did tell my parents, and at first they brushed me off, claiming I'd had a couple of drinks and it was late, so I probably just saw someone checking out the library. But I then had another conversation about it with my dad. He said there had been reports the last couple of weeks of car break-ins, and since my car is parked on my side of the street right outside my window, maybe they were trying to break into it. I pointed out that if he was trying to get into my car, why was he pressed up against the house where he wasn't visible from my window? And why did he at no point go towards my car? I think I freaked him out enough that we were going to potentially get a camera for that area. Given all the development happening around us, I think it's smart even without this incident. I'll update again if anything else happens. Okay, so here's my first update. There hasn't been any activity since the night after I originally posted. I was on a phone call the very next night with a friend when I had noticed someone standing outside completely shrouded in darkness. I proceeded to talk loudly about how some creep was watching me and they'd better watch out. Stupid, yes, but it seemed to work because it was all quiet after that. Or so I thought. Tonight was one of my oldest friends' last night in town, so I was out until about 9:30 p.m. and then drove 2 of my friends home and then myself. Since it was so early, I wasn't that worried, but still alert. I drove up to the side of the street he hit on last time, even though it was out of my way, and saw nothing out of the ordinary. I noticed one of the new houses that's being built had its lights on, which I didn't think much of at the moment. Fast forward an hour later, and I started hearing a weird loud banging sound across the way. I know it's risky, but I'm not letting some asshole dictate my comfort. And I've also been watching for activity and pretending so that maybe I can catch them. So I've kept my window open as usual. Hence why I was dumb to ransom the other night by talking about someone watching me. But I digress. It stopped, so I wrote it off. Big mistake. Shortly after, I had started hearing banging again, but this time I could actually feel it. It was coming from my house. I genuinely freaked out, like Knives Out status, but much more cowardly, cowering on my bedroom floor with my ear pressed to the door and knife in hand. It was a strange hollow sound that didn't seem like the front door. It wasn't. I once again called 911, describing what's happening and thinking they're probably going to write it off because I sounded crazy. I still feel in shock because this only just happened. Thankfully, the kind dude on the line definitely took me seriously, and he said someone would be on their way. For the record, the police department is like a 3-minute drive away from my house. I ended up tiptoeing downstairs to see, and once again felt my heart stop. I went to the front window, dug down, and there wasn't anyone at the front door. Then the banging starts again, and I can now tell how close it is. I went to the side window that overlooks the garage, and that's where I saw him. Dressed in black, hood pulled far over his face, banging wildly on the garage door with a fucking crowbar. I honestly don't know why he was using the crowbar to break in, but I'm super glad that he didn't, as the door inside the garage that leads into the house is always left unlocked. To say that I panicked is a vast understatement. I nearly pissed myself, which I think is understandable. I'm just standing there peeking out of the window watching this guy wail on my garage door with a crowbar, thinking how fucking unhinged he must be and how much I want the cops to get there now, when just like before he runs off. I quite literally just got done giving a report to the cops that showed up. My family was woken up and I had to talk to them as well, as they're the homeowners. And now they're both so freaked out that my dad just ordered 4 exterior cameras to monitor the house. I don't think it's over yet. This man has some reason he's targeting my house. Possibly me, since he started out by watching outside my window. I'm not sure what the hell's going on, but I have a crowbar too. Update number 2. So I'm not even sure if this is relevant to my previous post about the person watching through my window and banging on my garage with a crowbar, but I'm really worried that everything may be connected somehow. A week ago from last Saturday, I was supposed to meet up with a man who had contacted me through social media with friends in common. It wasn't an obvious date, more like a pre-date. We didn't get there though, as he had randomly blocked me out of nowhere. Then he unblocked and apologized, thinking everything was normal and we were hanging out. When I didn't respond at all, seeing some major red flags in his behavior, he had reached out to tell me that I had thin skin, you know, for not just going along with it and then meeting him in a debatably isolated place. I brushed it off only to get a message from a completely different man, seemingly unconnected, blatantly asking for a date exactly a week later. I asked him up front and kind of rudely why he reached out and wanted to date me, but he was seemingly unfazed. We seemed to have a lot in common, and we were supposed to meet tonight. Here's where it gets weird. I asked him if we should meet at 6 in a particular spot. He saw the message but didn't say anything. I figured since he was at work, he was busy. But then nothing all day, and when I checked again, he saw the message after we were supposed to meet, and still nothing. He pursued me just like the last guy, but this time made me more nervous because it feels like he wanted to make sure I was at a certain place at a certain time. For the record, it is a public place, but also very dark in the parking lot and somewhat rural. I didn't think much of that at first, as it's a place that I've gone to my whole life, but it feels like something is really going on here. These two men were not reaching out through a dating app. I'm not on any yet, as I wasn't sure about being ready to date again, and I wanted to let things happen or not happen organically. They found me through social media. Maybe it's not connected, but commenters on the other posts pointed out how easy it is to find someone's address through social media. And these last two men reaching out in such a way, acting in such a way, in such a close time really makes me wonder. Maybe my window watching garage door banger is separate. Hell, maybe even those are two separate people. I'm not sure what's scarier, but I'm thinking it's scarier if all of this is somehow connected as my gut tells me. I just don't believe in coincidences, and all of those things happening at the same time is so suspicious to me. I'll just continue going to my gun handling and safety courses, and I do start Muay Thai next month, so there's that. I hope this wasn't a boring update. I just have a really bad feeling about those two guys, and even if they aren't connected, I really hope we don't meet. I wanted to also mention that we've added 4 exterior cameras. Also, bad news, my mom lost her keys. They have an AirTag and police have made several attempts to retrieve them unsuccessfully. We don't always know the location. We've been keeping all the bedroom doors locked, and there are no extra keys in the main areas to those bedrooms, but it's still very scary. We're having the whole house rekeyed, and my mom has been using my dad's car since she goes to the neighborhood they're in for work. So yay, on top of all these weird anxiety-inducing incidents, someone out there also has keys to my house. Okay, so I think this is the final update. I honestly really wish I wasn't writing this right now. I've had weeks of peace, with only the ping of my overactive camera system alerting me to people passing by with their dogs or children. I thought everything was fine, and maybe this isn't the most dramatic update, but it was just another scary tick mark to add to the list. I got an alert to activity outside the garage. Given my garage door crowbar banger, that's the one I always pay most attention to, honestly. I've been awake at weird hours, and I hadn't been on my phone, so at first I thought it was just my dad leaving for work. Then I saw the recording it made shortly after. This man walked boldly up to the car in the driveway, and then tried the handles of the doors before then riding off. I then called the police and told them I have a good description and that I have it on video. But my town doesn't have a large police force, and some of them are just like any other department, shady and lazy. I've rewatched it so many times now, and he has the same build as the man that I saw at the garage from before. That's obviously not definitive, but now I have more details about his description that I couldn't see before due to lack of lighting and cameras. I'm still pretty shaky even though he didn't try to get in or anything. I was outside not even half an hour ago, though in the fenced backyard. I hope this isn't a lame update. It feels like it to me because still nothing is solved, and even though it might be unrelated, is that actually probable? That one person and or their house would attract so much trouble from completely different individuals? It just doesn't seem likely to me. To the man outside my house tonight, please let's never meet. I wanted to add something. This man saw the camera before he ran. I don't know if he would have tried more had he not, but it has little red and blue lights on the front part, so even I've noticed it. It's large and lights up quite a bit. That's why I thought they deter creeps so far. I just forgot to put that in because I don't think I'm exactly in a great headspace. Second edit. When I was visited by the police who very kindly didn't ring the bell, I gave all the evidence and they found the guy. I don't know for absolute sure if it was the same man that banged on my garage or watched from the window, but I do know that they caught this guy. And my video footage will be used, I guess. I don't know. I was really doubtful they'd actually send someone due to the chastising text message. Non-emergency was closed, so I had to call the regular line. As I'd mentioned in an earlier post about this incident, my dad had told me there had been a lot of car thefts in the neighborhood. The weirdest part to me that I think I must be fucking imagining is that he looks quite a bit like the guy that I had a one-night stand with a couple of months ago, right around when this all started. I really don't think it could be him, but I'm hoping that since I'm supposed to get the ring footage to the officer tomorrow, I can ask who this person is. I'm really hoping that it's all over now, and I'm so thankful for those who provided me with great advice, which really gave me a lot of comfort. Unless I'm wrong and there's a second person, which is statistically unlikely, this will be my last update on a thankfully closed chapter. Please be safe out there, everyone. I'm a 31-year-old female. When I was 16, I was in a choir at my high school that performed for a lot of different events around town. One of them was to sing at the middle school sporting events. The middle school in my hometown is just about half a mile from my childhood home, so whenever we had events there, I walked. I didn't get my license until I was 17. This one night, I think it was November, we had to sing at a basketball game, and it was obviously dark when I was able to leave. Normally, I wasn't allowed to walk alone at night, but for choir, I was given permission unless I felt unsafe. But there wasn't any reason to be creeped out at first, so I started my walk. Just down from the middle school was a stretch of road with almost no streetlights that has always creeped me out when walking. I crossed quickly and had a fast pace going, as I'm naturally a paranoid human. About 10 minutes into the dark zone, I had heard rapid footsteps behind me. I had first just figured it was a jogger, but they had made no attempt to pass me and just stayed a comfortable 10-foot distance. They then began whistling a jaunty tune, which at first I thought was fun. At this point, I wasn't super scared, perhaps because of the happy whistling tune, but I noticed that the footsteps began to speed up. There were no cars on the road, and given the lack of light, when I turned around, all I could see was a silhouette shrouded in darkness. At that realization, I quickened my pace to barely under a run. The whistling continued, getting more breathless as this person began to run after me. I looked back to see a dark figure coming at me with full speed, and in terror began to run frantically as well. I will never forget those last moments running through my dark subdivision, hearing his whistling and footsteps getting closer and closer. This person followed me all the way up to my door. I then ran inside and locked the front, checked all the other doors, and then went to my upstairs room. From the window, I could still see a silhouette, and I could still hear him whistling. I slept with a knife under my pillow that night. I'm a 26-year-old female. This is the first time I'm telling this story outside of HR cases and my store manager. For the sake of privacy reasons and investigation reasons, I have to change the names of the people in this story. I had started working at Lowe's just for some extra money at the time and a part-time job after my full-time job. I only worked there for 20 hours a week. And that 20 hours a week, I thought that it would be a breeze. Boy, was I wrong. It was a couple weeks after working there. One night I was closing with two managers, and one of them I didn't get along with, and the other just gave me weird vibes. I was closing with one of my friends who I'll call S. At the time, she and I made a great team for closing. I worked as their order fulfillment, and she worked as a cashier. I was hanging up by self-checkout talking to her, as well as my head cashier who I'll call D, just joking around and trying to make the night go faster. Then the manager, who I'll call Adam, came up to yell at us and tell us to get back to work. He went to the manager's office and I'd made fun of him, and then we all giggled and went back to work. SD and myself have a group chat together, and we were texting on there talking and making fun of Adam. Then on the overhead speaker, Adam had called me to the office. I walked back there, and he had told me that my supervisor wanted me to pull a couple of deliveries that go out in a couple of days. I said okay and went to pull them, but before I walked out, he had asked if I needed any help. I said that I don't think so, but I'll call if I need it. As I was walking out, he was just staring at my ass. I didn't think anything of it because that's just what a lot of men do to women at this store. I was outside the lawn and garden trying to find the stepping stones that went with the delivery, and I had heard some noise. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see Adam watching me. He told me that he was sorry, but that he had never seen anyone as beautiful as I was before. I was just like, thanks. I then stacked the stepping stones onto my cart and went to stage them. I was sitting in the receiving office trying to get the deliveries pulled, and then he came back there. He sat next to me and was trying to make small talk with me, and I talked with him back because I was still trying to get to know people. He was talking about how he's married with 3 kids. I told him that was cute and that I wanted kids of my own, but that I wanted to find someone who would actually be worth my time. Then he told me, "I'll give you a kid, and I'll support you through and through, but only if you want. I don't want to push you into anything." I laughed it off and was just like, "Yeah, no thanks, I'll find someone." I got up to leave, but then he grabbed me and then squeezed me, then saying, "Sorry about that. It's just a bit of a habit whenever my wife walks by." I shrugged it off because I was just so weirded out, and I didn't want this to affect me for the rest of the night. The end of the night came, and S&D and I were walking out to go home, and then Adam just yelled bye to me but no one else. I felt so creeped out, but D had made me laugh about it. The next night I was closing again with Adam and another manager who I'll call Isaac. D and S were also working. D looked at me and asked if I was okay because I didn't seem like my normal laughing self. I just told her it was just a bad day at my other job. Isaac and I went to the back so he could help me get some flooring down for an order, and he asked me what was going on because I didn't make fun of him or make any usual jokes. I told him that there was something bothering me but that I didn't want to talk about it. He then told me that he was just one text away and a great listener. I told him that I might, but just not yet until I figured things out, and he understood. I then staged the order and receiving, and Adam was back there. He had started talking to me, saying things like, "Hey cutie, what are you up to tonight?" I told him that I was just trying to get the orders done so I could go home. Then he said, "I'll take care of them if you need to go. Don't worry about it." But I declined the offer because I needed the money. He then proceeded to say that he would help pay my bills because I wasn't myself and he wanted to help. I declined again, asking him politely to leave me alone about it. Well, he didn't like that very much. We were closed and leaving for the night, and I was walking out with Isaac and D because S had left from being sick earlier. Isaac parked next to me, and him and I were talking and he had asked me to go get a drink with him. I said yes, and then we went to a bar up by my apartment. As I was sitting there with him having a drink, he had asked me if Adam was making me feel uncomfortable, which I said yes, but I'm just brushing it off at the moment. Isaac told me to just watch out for him because he tries to mess with all the girls. I thanked him and I felt really good that he was watching out for me. I then left the bar and Isaac told me where his apartment was, and I told him that I lived in the apartment across the street. He left and so did I, but I got caught at a light and went home. As I was going home, I had seen a car following me at every turn. I then got to my apartment complex, but stayed in my car and called D. I told her that someone followed me home and that I'm really scared to get out of my car. She then came down to my car and walked me to my apartment and then walked back to her apartment. We lived in separate buildings but in the same complex. Isaac sent me a text telling me he had a fun time and that we should do it again sometime, and I agreed. A couple of days passed and I had went to work on a Saturday for the full day because I was off from my full-time job and I had picked up a shift. I pulled into the parking lot at the same time as Isaac and Adam. We were all working similar shifts. Isaac got off an hour before me, and Adam and I got off at the same time. I walked in and went to the break room, and there was nobody else there. Well, Adam came in and behind me, and he then whispered in my ear, "Hey sexy, why were you so scared to get out of your car last night?" I was so freaked out that I didn't even move. My supervisor came into the break room, and I was still standing in my locker, shell-shocked. She asked me if I was okay, to which I then shockingly turned around in tears. She asked me what happened, to which I then replied with, "I really don't know what to do at this point." She then took me to the bathroom and washed my face and then calmed me down. Then she started helping me pull orders, just thinking I was stressed out. I couldn't tell her the truth. We split, and then I went to the door aisle to get a door for a customer. Well, Adam was in the aisle with me. He winked at me, and then once again he came up and grabbed me and then tried kissing me. I had moved away and asked him to stop because I was severely uncomfortable, but then he grabbed me by my waist, then saying, "It's okay, beautiful. Let me show you a real man." Essen saw this and then went and immediately told the store manager. I then went to the bathroom and lost it. I started crying and feeling so disgusted. My store manager had pushed for me to talk to her and come to her office. I had made my way up there in tears, and Isaac saw me and told me to text if I needed to. My store manager then took me to the camera room and told me to talk to her. The AP manager then pulled up the camera footage of him coming onto me, and then me in tears right after. I told them everything, and even that he followed me home last night, and then what he did and what he had said to me in the break room. I then told them how the other night he had grabbed and squeezed on me. I then started crying more and more, and they filed the HR case for me. In the meantime, they had only scheduled him to open and for me to close. Isaac had heard about it, and he had begged them to allow him to be close with me just for the time being, just to make sure that I got home safely, and they agreed. Adam came up to me 2 weeks later and then started screaming at me, and he had even smacked me and pushed me into a display where I broke it. Adam then put in for a higher position at a different store, and they hired him and he left. I haven't seen him since all this happened a few years ago. I now have a restraining order against him, and I really hope that he's not doing this to any other females out there. Adam was a real piece of shit, and I hope that one day he really gets what he deserves. Hey everyone, that's about it for today's stories. If you have your own story that you would like to send, you can send it in at southerncannibal.com, or you can email it at southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. I look forward to telling your story. Have a good night or good day, everyone. And remember to always stay